Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of the Chocolate Shake. Inshallah, today I'd like to deal with Shaheed Malcolm X, that is the martyr Malcolm X. As of February 19th, we commemorated his martyrdom back in 1965. Yes, our dear brother was cut down by the forces that were arrayed against him, which of course were domestic forces right here in the United States of America. There's a lot of information out there now talking about how it is that our brother lost his life, how it was that he was martyred. The details of that can be found almost openly now. We know that, of course, it was some type of collusion between members of the Nation of Islam and, of course, our own government, most likely the CIA or the FBI, manipulating other blacks against each other, which is something that they've always done. We would be foolish to think that our government has not participated in these things. We now know that even J. Edgar Hoover, after Malcolm X and Dr. John Clark organized the Organization of African-American Unity, they were declared a threat, a major threat to the security of the United States of America. Can you believe that? Some black folks trying to do better for themselves, not trying to bring the country down, just trying to do better for themselves. But they were declared a security threat by our own government. So what I wanted to do today to commemorate for you guys Malcolm's martyrdom is just to speak a little bit about his organization, that is the Organization of Afro-American Unity. He put this together with John Hendrick Clark and some others so that we could have an organization where we can get some unity going, get past some of our religious differences, get past some of our other differences, and do similarly to our African brothers and sisters who had an organization called the Organization of African Unity, the OAAU. So Malcolm's organization was to imitate that organization to get the same result. Because in the 1950s, from 1954 all the way into, about 1970, these African nations started to roll and they started to throw off the shackles of their colonizers. They started to pull away from their colonizers and they started on the road toward revolution and making themselves better, becoming independent, going through their own liberation. Okay, so they did this primarily through organizations like the Organization of African Unity. So Malcolm figured, along with John Clark and others, let us do something similar. Let us have an Organization of Afro-American Unity and imitate what it is our brothers across seas did so that we can get our liberation here in the United States of America. So what I'll do is I'm just going to read some basic information that came from the internet about the Organization of Afro-American Unity and give us at least 5 bullet points that came from the organization that we ourselves can use today to push back against some of the things that we're dealing with, right? I always told my students when I taught in the religious classes, you never look at history as history. You never study history as history. You always want to study history as something happening now, like it's a newsreel going on now. You take what it is that you have from history and then you apply it to your life in the here and in the now. All right. So history is not something that you just study to study it. History is something that you study so that you could better your situation. You take all the gems from what it is that the predecessors gave you, apply it to your life and better your circumstances. So now you can make a better life for those who come behind you. That's how history works, right? So let's read this basic information about the Organization of Afro-American Unity that Malcolm and others put together as he had left the Nation of Islam. It says here, Malcolm X announced the establishment of the OAAU, that is the Organization of Afro-American Unity, at a public meeting in New York's Audubon Theater on June 28, 1964. He had written the group's charter with John Hendrick Clark, Albert Cleage. For those who don't know Albert Cleage, he's the person that started the Church of the Black Madonna. Jesse Gray and Gloria Richardson, amongst others. In a memo dated July 2, 1974, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover described the nascent OAAU as a threat to the national security of the United States of America. That always blows me away, how black folks try to better ourselves. All we're trying to do is bring ourselves, especially back in the, before the 60s and beyond, into first-class citizenship. And just because we wanted to have first-class citizenship with our white brothers and sisters, that made us a threat to the national security of America, right? But I guess at the end of the day, when you really look at it, and you see what America has been established on, which has been the blood and bones of the Native American and the Black American, I guess you would consider us a threat, right? If we're saying that you're going to not continue to build anything off our blood and bone. Malcolm X, along with John Henrik Clarke, wrote the following into the Organization of Afro-American Unity. This was the basic program. Number one, restoration. Quote, in order to release ourselves from the oppression of our enslavers, then it is absolutely necessary for the Afro-American to restore communication with Africa, end quote. So this is Malcolm and John Clarke saying that before we can do anything, we have to have somewhat of a Pan-Africanist mindset. Right now, I know for those of us who are serious Muslims and serious Christians, sometimes we want to stay within the realm of our own religious organizations to bring ourselves any type of liberation. And I agree with that because I'm a Muslim. I agree with that. However, we still have to reach outside of ourselves and be able to move along with other people who are not in our religions, who are not in our particular circles, right? We can do that. That's possible. It doesn't mean that you have to lose anything about yourself. Just because you're claiming a certain type of ally or you want to unify with somebody doesn't mean that you become those people or they become you. You're just saying, or we're just saying that I'm Muslim, you might be Christian, this person might be atheist, that person might be a Buddhist or Hindu, but we're going to work together and do what is necessary to get this particular man off of us, right? The person that's suppressing us or oppressing us, we're going to get him off of us. So that's what he was saying. For us, or for Malcolm and his organization, they were saying we have to look back toward Africa because Malcolm saw us as Africans, as I do. We are African people, right? Malcolm once famously said, just because a pregnant cat, crawls up into an oven and have kittens doesn't make those kittens biscuits. Okay, so this is what Malcolm was saying. It's still a cat from someplace else. Just because the kittens were born in an oven don't make the kittens biscuits. They're still kittens. So he said that about us, that we might be people who are born in America, but we have to remember where we're from. We're from Mother Africa. Africa is our mother. So that makes us Africans, regardless of when we came to the Americas, because some people make that an argument. Well, we're not really Africans, we're really Americans. Like that argument doesn't make sense to me because when it comes down to it, humanity came out of Africa. That's just what it is. Those are the data points and the facts that we have in hand, right? Humanity comes from Africa. So whatever time you came, we have to recognize that when you look at us and you look at this blackface, that we are people from African descent. All right. Number two, reorientation. Quote, we can learn much about Africa by reading informative books and while listening to the experiences of those who have traveled there, end quote. So we reorient our mind. In other words, now you take off the brainwashing, right? You start to understand that, okay, that's home and this is what they have done. So let's see what we can do because we're like these people. So let's have a reorientation about Africa, that Africa is not this place where, it's a bunch of chimpanzees swinging on trees and Tarzan is right behind them, right? All of this nonsense that we were fed from the Western world about the degradation of Africa. But to understand that Africa is important to the African American, the Black American, the Afro-American, or whatever it is that we're calling ourselves nowadays as a tribe, but knowing that Africa is still important to us and that we need to look to her to get some solutions. Number three, Education. Quote, the Organization of Afro-American Unity will devise original educational methods and procedures which will liberate the minds of our children. We will encourage qualified Afro-Americans to write and publish the textbooks needed to liberate our minds, educating them, that is, our children, at home, end quote. You see, Malcolm and them, they were ahead of their time because they saw what we're dealing with today. We can't be people who think that we're going to be liberated by putting our children into public school systems or even private school systems that are going to give them an orientation toward white supremacy or give them an orientation outside of themselves, whoever the new colonizer will be, right? It's very important for you and your children to know who you are. We have to know who we are. And we have to make sure that the education that we have and our children have is a positive, healthy education. We are now far past the point where we can sit back and not know the benefits of having pride in oneself. Pride in oneself, and by extension, pride in one's tribe, cultivate a healthy psychology, a healthy spirituality, and a healthy physicality, right? When you're proud of yourself and you're proud of your own tribe, that makes you ready for this world. It gives you all of the good stuff that you need to be progressive and healthy in this world. People who have low self-esteem and low tribal esteem do not do well in this life. These people become destructive. They become destructive agents in their own societies, in their own tribes, and in their own personal lives. So this is very important that we have to be careful to guard the education of our children. Who is educating your children? If the very same people who enslaved us and then after slavery treated us as second-class citizens, and after we got our second-class citizenship and clawed our way into first citizenship, they still treat you like they don't want to be with you. The minute you come inside of their communities, the minute you come inside of their school systems, these people flee. To this day, this is 2025, and to this day, right here where I'm living, which was a majority white area, they are now fleeing and going further north, or they're going back into Atlanta. But what they are doing is they're getting out of the suburbs and they're leaving Negroes right here in the suburbs. As we move in, they move out. Fact, for those who don't know it, most American communities, once a black person moves into a community that's majority white, they will take one black family out of every 10 households of whites. Once you have 2 black families per every 10 households of whites, the whites leave that community. They abandon it. They're out. So in other words, white folks could barely tolerate 1 black family per 10 families around them in a neighborhood. 2 to 10, they're gone. The whites pack up and they leave. They leave you right here where you are. They take their tax money. They drain everything out of the community. And then now the community is just left with those middle-class blacks that just came in to try to hold up these malls, these stores, to make sure that you have enough tax revenue for schools, enough tax revenue to fix the roadways, tax revenues to fix your bridges, which you're not going to have because blacks don't have the wealth of the whites. So when the whites take their money out of a community, the community basically collapses. Even if you move black people in, you move Mexicans in, you move others in, you move Asians in, even if you move them in, those communities still will be a bit rocky unless there's an understanding with those people who are coming in that they're going to live together in unity and harmony and struggle with everything they have to hold that community together. This is just the facts. At the end of the day, we still have our white American brothers and some others now that hold the majority of the wealth. And when it comes to exactly who holds the wealth in America, let's understand that the whites still have that, okay? They still have that. So when they take their money out, you hurt in a capitalist society. Number 4, economic security. And I quote, after the Emancipation Proclamation, it was realized that the Afro-American constituted the largest homogeneous ethnic group with a common origin and common group experience in these United States of America, and if allowed to exercise economic or political freedom, would in a short period of time own this country. We must establish a technician bank. We must do this so that the newly independent nations of Africa can turn to us, who are their brothers, for their technicians they will need now and in the future, end quote. Now, this is Malcolm. I mean, this is deep. What he's saying is what I've always said to people. Folks always say, you know, white America, black America, Latino America, Asian America. But when you say that, there's some falsehood going on with that. Because at the end of the day, you have to look at each group through ethnic origin, or you look at each group as a tribe. And when you become tribal, whites are now not just whites anymore. They're Irish, Italian, German, British, French, Polish. You go on down the line. And when you start to extract the whites like that, and you pull each white into their own true origin, then all of a sudden their groups get small. Now, the only homogeneous group in America that has millions of people like us, millions that can comprise that kind of tribe, is the Black American. And when you put us together, we have a strong 40 million. And that's before you start putting on the Trinis and the Jamaicans and the Africans coming from the African continent. I'm just talking about those of us whose ancestry go back to slavery in this country. We become now the biggest tribe. I've been saying that for years. And people say, well, the Latinos are, no, the Latinos are not, because the Latinos, they too, amongst themselves, are not one people. A Cuban is not a Puerto Rican. A Puerto Rican is not a Dominican. A Dominican is not a Guatemalan. A Guatemalan is not a Mexican. A Mexican is not a Venezuelan. A Venezuelan is, you can go right on down the line, right? These are different peoples. They have nothing in common except the fact that they have a common oppressor, or had a common oppressor from Spain, and they had a language that the oppressor gave them, Spanish. Outside of that, they're different peoples. They have nothing in common with each other, all right? So this point that was made by Malcolm is an excellent point. When you look at it that way, then you really see the power of the Black American and what it is that we can do. And he's saying that we should have built a bank, a technician bank, as he said, meaning a bank of people who are qualified. Nowadays, we call that STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. Now you take these people, you get that kind of education, and then you let Mother Africa use them as we use Mother Africa in tandem to build each other up. That's what he was trying to say back then. Still a good ideal. Everything that I've read so far still applies to us today. Still applicable to this day. Number 5, self-defense. And I quote, in order to enslave a people and keep them subjugated, their rights to self-defense must be denied. We encourage the Afro-Americans to defend themselves against the wanton attacks of racist aggressors whose sole aim is to deny us the guarantee of the United Nations Charter of Human Rights and of the Constitution of these United States of America, end quote. So even with this, we see that at this time, we're still dealing with the old idea of self-defense. So here it is again, we have Shaheed Malcolm telling us that it's so important for us to remember that whatever we're doing, whatever type of people that you're going to become, that you can only become those people if you're able to defend what it is that you have. Nothing that you have, if you can't defend it, can you keep? And that's just the reality of the matter. If you want to have something in your hand, then you better be able to defend what's in your hand. Otherwise, somebody will come and take it from you. If you want to have some land, you better have a way to defend that land. Otherwise, as we're seeing today with the Israelis and how it is they're treating our Palestinian brothers and sisters, they will come take your land and justify killing you right on off of it, genociding you right on off of it, while the world sits around and look and say, oh, well, maybe the Israelis have a point, right? Well, what are the Palestinians anyway? What kind of people are them? They're like cockroaches, right? And that's what they said about black people. And here in this country, I'm talking about the Palestinian, like it didn't happen here. In this country, we've had plenty of examples where our white brothers and sisters have risen up because they make a claim that some black man did something to some white woman. And then they will go and barrel through black communities, killing people as they go through, and they will take your land. And when it's all said and done, the government will never come back and say, okay, wait a minute, hold on, give those people back their land. Give these people some reparations for the damage. You got to repair what you did. You tore it up. You got to fix it. Now, every country they've torn up, every place they've torn up, they've always had a way to say, well, we need to go back and fix that now. We tore it up. Except when it comes to the black man. Except when it comes to black Americans. Now they have nothing in them to restore us, right? Just to show you that. I used to always say this. People never wanted to accept it. But I always have said, you know, these people look at us like we're still their niggas. At the end of the day, you have to be looked down on and looked at as, that's my nigga. I don't have to give my nigga anything because he's mine, right? He belongs to me. Why do I pay reparations or restore my damn pet? Huh? Why would I do that? And that has to be the attitude because, of course, restoration and reparations have been paid to the Japanese, they've been paid to the Germans, they've been paid to the Jews. We even have reparations for the people who enslaved Africans in this land. They got paid reparations. Everybody seemed to get reparations, but the people who needed the most, the black American. So this is why you have to have self-defense mechanisms. You have to have ways to say that, you know, I have to defend what it is I have. If I can put up some property or buy some property, then I have to have a way to defend that property. And guess what, brothers and sisters? Guess what? Regardless of all the brainwashing that we've been given via religion and the social structure here in the West, how it is they try to handcuff you with nonviolence, right? They want you to become nonviolent because that's their way of saying that, you know, we'll give you some concessions if you promise us you won't fight us. Right. We're not going to give you total liberation. We're not going to give you reparations. We're not going to restore you. We're going to leave you be. But we also need a guarantee from you that you won't ever be violent with us. So nonviolence has been engineered into the mindset and into the fabric of the black American so that we never look toward that as a way of protecting ourselves or liberating ourselves. I've always thought that was foolish. Malcolm X told us that you have to learn to speak the language of your oppressor. And if the oppressor's language is nonviolence, then by all means, we should speak that language. And I believe that. Anybody that wants to do anything in this world and they decide that they want to do it via nonviolence and they have the upper hand, they have the power, then I say for those who are up under them, if they go the nonviolent route, by all means, you go nonviolent. You don't become violent with somebody who's showing you that they don't want to go there. But for people who have the upper hand on you and they decide that they're going to use violent means to crack down on you and then tell you that I'll only concede to you or give you some concession if you're nonviolent, then I don't think that makes any sense in the world. That makes no sense at all. We should never shackle ourselves with the theory or the philosophy of nonviolence. I'm sorry, we just can't. You only do that when somebody's being nonviolent. When people have decided that they're going to be violent, then you have to be violent with them just to make sure that you survive. The first rule of nature is survival, that I want to live. Every single solitary thing on this planet, every cell, every animal, insect, everything that exists on this planet Earth fights to survive. So it's natural for the human being to say that I will defend myself if I'm attacked or something tries to take away my survival, my ability to survive and thrive. So this is at least 5 points that came from the OAAU. I'll end it off by saying this. The OAAU pushed for black control of every aspect of the black community. At the founding rally, Malcolm X stated that the organization's principal concern was the human rights of blacks, but that it would also focus on voter registration, school boycotts, rent strikes, housing rehabilitation, social programs for addicts, programs for unwed mothers, and for troubled children. Malcolm X saw the OAAU as a way of unbrainwashing black people, ridding them of the lies they had been told about themselves and their culture. So this is what I wanted to say about Shaheed Malcolm X, that is the Martyr Malcolm X, and that we should remember him and commemorate him so that these ideals never die. He gave us that in June 28th, 1964. Here we are today. I believe we're at the 25th now of 2025. And we're still dealing with this. Nothing has changed much. So we can still apply these ideals. We can apply these philosophies, join groups that still promote these types of philosophies to better our situation now, just as our brothers and sisters did, our fathers and mothers did a whole generation before us. So with that, I'll try to clean this up and end it by saying that we never want to forget who our predecessors were and what it is they went through. We could always look back to history to understand our present. If you don't understand the history, you will never understand your present. And in the present and in the now, we have to do the things that are necessary to secure ourselves and secure a future for our babies. So take these elements that came from the OAAU, apply them to yourselves and your lives best you can, and always make a little dua, make a prayer for our predecessors, including people like Shaheed Malcolm X. I pray all is well and that things are going your way here at the top of the year. I know it's a lot of wild stuff going on with President Trump and his cabal of robber baron billionaires that's around him. And we'll talk about those things because that's what the moral man does. We have to make sure that people understand what's going on around them. So we'll do some videos on what's going on with that. I just don't want to get oversaturated with that in my life. I want to keep my mind clear and my soul sharp. We're getting ready to come into the month of Ramadan in a couple of days, and we have to be very careful about the unhealthiness of the news cycle and how it is that the devils bring in this negativity to our lives. We have to really balance ourselves against this stuff. Otherwise, you'll bring yourself down. And we do have to talk about how it is that we use our spirituality, how it is that we use our moral code to push back against these demons, all right? So we'll do that. If you find any value in this video, do me a favor and push the like button. And if you have not already, please subscribe to my channel. Y'all take care. Peace.